Oh man, I don't think you guys understand how delightful my comment section was this morning when I woke up and I checked the comments of our previous video on Paul George. And that's not to say that I wasn't rooting for Paul George this entire time, because I always want top tier NBA talent to perform at their highest capabilities in the NBA playoffs, especially when there's talks about the NBA not coming back for quite some time. I want to see Paul George perform as well as he can. I want to see Kawhi Leonard perform as well as he can. I want to see Kristaps Porzingis actually play, and I would like to see Marcus Morris not try to take his ankles. No, not that version of taking his ankles. But before we get to all of that, guys, before we jump into this analysis, because there's been so much that we need to cover from last night's game, from Paul George's scoring performance all the way to Marcus Morris literally trying to assault Luka Doncic, make sure to drop a like to help this channel grow. Literally smashing that like button does wonders for the YouTube algorithm. Subscribe and turn on my notifications if you always want to get notified of the latest NBA news. I try to do my best to bring you guys updates every day, and if there are no updates, then you probably won't get a video from me. I'm giving away multiple copies of NBA 2K21 on both my Twitter and Instagram, and I live stream on Twitch on Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Sundays at 9 p.m. Pacific time at twitch.tv/Theflightmike. Now that we got all of that out of the way, cue the intro. Mic check 1 2 1 2. What's going on, everybody? So if you guys saw my video on the reason why Paul George has been performing so badly in the NBA playoffs so far, then you probably got a good chuckle out of that video after seeing Paul George go off for 35 points on 12 of 18 shooting in a 154-111 blowout of the Dallas Mavericks. Now look, man, I don't want to discredit Paul George's performance. I don't want to say that it doesn't count, because that would be absurd. But if you saw the game last night, the Clippers clearly got him going by getting him some easy shots earlier in the game. And honestly, only 6 of his points came when the Dallas Mavericks were up. And then obviously at the beginning of the second quarter, the Clippers started pulling away. But at that point, Paul George did perform a little bit as well, but eventually he just got reinserted back in the game to play against the Dallas bench. And I felt like most of the game last night was done just to pump up Paul George's stats, to boost Paul George's confidence. And again, I'm not trying to discredit it, but come on, if you guys saw the game last night, you would have to agree with me. It's not like the dominant Paul George performance we expected. Rather, I saw it more as an attempt for the Los Angeles Clippers to boost Paul George's confidence, given what's going on with him. And that's what a good head coach does. Honestly, I give tremendous props to Doc Rivers. That's what you're supposed to do. So for the fans that are saying, hey, Paul George is back, I'm not exactly sure yet. I haven't seen him perform in a very tough playoff position. Last night was easy, man. The Clippers were dominating the Dallas Mavericks for most of the game. Luka Doncic's ankle was also acting up. Kristaps Porzingis was not playing. Rick Carlisle got ejected. And I understand, even before all that stuff, the Clippers were already dominating. But I need to see Paul George dominate in a very clutch moment before I finally say Pandemic P is over. But for our sake, and for the sake of Paul George, I'm always going to be rooting for him. I always want the best for NBA players, even though if they're on my rival team's team. But I'm rooting for you, man. And he also had something to say that potentially validated what we said in our last video. So if you guys didn't catch my last video, I'm going to leave it in the description down below, because I think it's definitely worth a watch. It's a very interesting theory on why Paul George has been performing so horribly against the Dallas Mavericks. And a lot of you guys said in the comment section that it's actually because he's always been a horrific playoff performer. And I went ahead and did some homework on this, and I understand most of you guys say he was a horrific playoff performer, but he was never as horrific as this past year. You see, when he was on the Indiana Pacers, in his first 3 years, he was whatever. He was averaging like 6 points per game, 10 points per game, and then 19.2 points per game. And then he came into his own in the 2013 to 2014 season when he averaged 22.6 points per game. Ever since then, he's averaged at least 27 points per game, except for his first season with the OKC Thunder. And his field goal percentage has always hovered around the 40 to 41%. And last year, in his final year with the OKC Thunder, it was about 44% from the field. This past year, he's been averaging 37% from the field. He scored 29 points per game last year, and this year he's only scoring 19.2 points per game. So, although you guys might be thinking, hey, historically, Paul George has been a horrific player in the playoffs, he has never been this freaking bad. So there is something to my theory, and this is a response to those of you guys that think he's always been bad. He hasn't been this bad, okay? But even furthermore, Paul George came out and said that the bubble got the best of him and that he was just in a very dark place. I really wasn't here. I checked out these past couple of games. It was just difficult, but shout out to the people that stood behind me, that were in my corner, the positivity of my teammates, my family, my friends, everybody. Thanks everybody that reached out to me. I was just in a bad place, but I found my way back. I'm back and I look forward to the rest of this run. I underestimated mental health, anxiety, a little bit of depression. Games 2, 3, and 4, I felt like I wasn't there. So, look, I don't want to say that he's implying anything, but if there's something that could get him depressed, it was definitely my theory in our previous video. So think about what he just said. He said he was dealing with anxiety, he was dealing with a little bit of depression, and there was a lot of things running through his head. Now think about what Seth Curry was doing to him. Think about everything that was going on in the first couple of games. Do you think that my theory now sounds so ridiculous? Now look, there's no way I could fully connect the two. There's no way I could say without a doubt, this is what happened. It's just a theory. But nevertheless, I have trouble coming up with another explanation other than what we discussed in our previous video. And once again, if you guys didn't see my video on my theory, it's in the description down below. It's just way too long to go into that in this video. But the final thing I want to discuss is Marcus Morris literally going after Luka Doncic's ankle. So if you guys didn't notice, here's the clip of Marcus Morris trying to step on Luka Doncic's publicly injured ankle. And Emmanuel Acho on Twitter couldn't have said it better himself. An NBA basketball court is 4,700 square feet, and Marcus Morris happens to step directly on Luka Doncic's publicly injured left ankle. Is this a coincidence or was it an accident? You tell me. I do want to think that this was an accident. Marcus Morris also did this earlier in the year, literally like an off the heezy off of a Wizards defender. So morally, it's not outside of Marcus Morris's moral compass to do something like this. And then there's this video of Marcus Morris trying to knee Ben Simmons in the back of the head. Like, look at this, man. Are you kidding me? I think there's something to say here, and there's definitely something here given Marcus Morris's history. And whenever Marcus Morris was asked if it was intentional, but he seemed pretty freaking defensive when they asked him about whether it was intentional or not, tweeting out that I play this game with a level of respect for myself and other players. To think I would try to injure somebody is crazy to me. 10 years going against the best, I stand on morals and hard work, I compete and leave it out there every game. Basketball has never been that serious to try to hurt somebody. I'm not apologizing because I know what I put into this game day in and day out. It was a mistake, deal with it. Competing is why I play. All right, so it looks like he's not even apologizing for the fact that he may have stepped on an individual's injured ankle, which, by the way, even if it is an accident, you know, you could say I'm sorry for stepping on an injured ankle. The fact that he's not even apologizing just further feeds into my suspicion of whether this was done intentionally or not. And typically, this wouldn't make me this upset, but when you think of the fact that Luka Doncic is 21 years old and he is the future face of the NBA so far, then it definitely draws my ire when I see Marcus Morris literally trying to target him. Now, when Luka Doncic was asked whether he felt that Marcus Morris intentionally stepped on his injured ankle, he said, "I don't want to talk to Morris. He's just saying a lot of bad stuff to me in all the games. I don't want to talk to him. I've just got to move on. Like I said, everybody's going to have their own opinion. I just hope it wasn't intentional. If it was intentional, that was really bad. At the time of this video, the NBA is going to look into and investigate whether or not this move by Marcus Morris was malicious. Let me know in the comment section down below if you think Marcus Morris did this on purpose, or if you actually think it's an accident. And also, what do you think about my Paul George theory? After seeing what happened last night and what he said earlier today, do you agree with it? Or do you think I'm out of my mind? If you enjoy the content, make sure to hit that sub button, man, because we don't really shy away from the controversial takes on this channel, and we also like to make sure that you guys are featured in each and every upload, which is why I post your comments in the video as well. I'm your boy Mike, and I'm dropping our mic until our next upload.